when you talk about leaders, you have to shiver. On the other hand, there are differences. So take, say, Chavez, who you mentioned. On December, I don't know how many people know this, but on December 31st, at the end of last year, Chavez announced an amnesty for participants in the military coup in 2002, April 2002, not for all of them, for many of them. This is a military coup backed by the United States, probably with participation, U.S. participation, certainly support, which overthrew the government, kidnapped the president, disbanded Parliament, the Supreme Court, every other democratic institution, applauded in the United States, denounced in Latin America almost entirely. It was overturned a couple of days later. But suppose it had happened here. Suppose there was a military coup here, which overthrew the government, kidnapped George Bush, disbanded Congress, and then there was a popular uprising and it overturned the coup. I mean, would they be amnestied, the people who took part in it? They'd get the death sentence. There wouldn't be any question of amnesty. Well, I don't know if it was out of embarrassment or lack of interest, but actually I had a friend do a database search on coverage of the amnesty. A couple of lines, scattered lines here and there. I'm sure you know that Chavez is like a demon in the Western press. And one of his worst crimes, which just elicited a torrent of abuse, was canceling the license of a television station, RCTV. Actually, didn't close the station, contrary to what was said. He canceled their license to take up a large part of the publicly owned frequencies. They could still go on cable. That was considered utterly horrendous, and press denounced them, said this kind of thing could never happen here, which is perfectly true. It couldn't happen here, but very few pointed out the reason. The station, you have to think of an analogy. Let's go back to the imagined military coup in the United States, the way I described. Suppose that CBS helped instigate the coup, supported it openly. As the popular uprising took place that overthrew the coup leaders, CBS started playing, comedies and anything so that people wouldn't know what's going on in the streets. What would happen to CBS afterwards? To their managers and owners? Would they be allowed to keep broadcasting for 5 years and then have their license for public broadcasting removed? They'd be immediately sent to jail, probably get the death sentence. So it's true, it wouldn't happen here, but not for exactly the reasons that were mentioned. Well, go on like this. We simply, let me take one last example to illustrate just the difficulty of applying to ourselves the standards we do to others. Take 9/11. Terrible atrocity, a huge outpouring of sympathy and support all over the world, including, incidentally, from the jihadi movements. I mean, they later turned because of our reaction to it, but at the beginning they were highly condemned it very strongly. And it was a terrible atrocity, undoubtedly. But it could have been worse. So let's imagine how it could have been worse, for example. Suppose that on September 11th, Al-Qaeda had bombed the White House, killed the president, instituted a murderous, brutal regime which killed maybe 50 to 100,000 people and tortured about 700,000, set up a major international terror center in Washington, which was overthrowing governments all over the world, installing brutal, vicious neo-Nazi dictatorships, assassinating people. Suppose he called in a bunch of economists, let's call them the Kandahar boys, to run the American economy, who within a couple of years had driven the economy into one of the worst collapses of its history. Suppose that this had happened. That would have been worse than 9/11, right? What did happen? And it happened on 9/11. It happened on September 11th, 1973 in Chile. The only thing I've changed is per capita equivalence. which is the right way to look at it. Well, did that change the world? Yeah, it did, but not from our point of view. In fact, who even knows about it?
Well, because, and because, just in terms of your comment of the report.
And incidentally, just to finish, we were responsible for that one.
Definitely, and